So that's us rolling.
That's us rolling.
Yeah. Here we are today. I figured what an opportunity to talk a little bit about my own watches, some of my private collection. I brought a nice box along so you can have a look at some of the pieces that I've got. And I thought, let me get away from all the noise, let me get away from everybody and just chill out Sunday afternoon and talk a little bit about the things that make me really passionate. I have a real big thing for watches. So if you ask me, Lawrence, what have you got on your wrist today? I'll tell you, I've got the Bell & Ross BR02 diver on my wrist. A discontinued watch. I reckon this thing's going to be worth a fortune one day. And the reason for that is they just don't make it anymore. I think it's really cool because it became ultra uncool not too long ago. I love this piece. I think it works with everything that I'm wearing. So I thought I'd look at a few watches that I love and reasons why I love these things. So I brought the trusty pelicase along. I've got a couple of watches here today that we can have a look at. Let's take out a few pieces that I think is worthwhile discussing. We'll start with two first, and then we'll have a look at the others in a sec. Here we have probably the coolest watch I've got. Well, one of. It's called the Omega Ploprof. There is nothing on this planet that looks like this watch. It is the most recognizable watch in terms of a face. You don't have to guess what it is. The moment you see this outline case, you know immediately what it is. It's one of its big rivals, one of its main competitors, and this is probably my favorite watch. Out of all the watches that I've got about 25 pieces. This guy here, the Rolex Deepsea Sea-Dweller James Cameron, as it's called, that is probably my favorite watch. Firstly, I love the fact that I've got an orange and a blue strap on these watches. This just makes them look awesome. The other thing is, from a safety perspective, whenever you wear like a bright blue strap or a bright orange strap on a watch, every real gangster out there who wants to nab your watch, they think you're wearing toy watches, and so they don't bother following you around until they watch this show, and then they might switch their strategy. Why did I pull out these two watches? Quite simple. It's big rivalry, okay? Omega versus Rolex. As the comments go, Omega makes watches, Rolex sells watches. Although I'll be honest with you, the best thing about it is the fact that these two watches are super accurate. Like I've had them on my wrist, and I think when I had the Omega on, I had it on for maybe about on and off for about a month. It didn't lose more than 2 or 3 seconds that month. Same thing with the Rolex when I got it. I think they're absolutely stunning. Both brands came out with these deep sea divers already in the 60s, 50s, 70s. This particular one was done for a French company called Comex. That was in the 70s, and they spent so much time trying to design this watch. I think it took 3 years that Comex eventually went with Rolex in the end. This guy can go 1.2 kilometers down into the ocean. I've not been down even 100 meters into the ocean. These things are fucking desk divers, right? I sit at the desk and I talk about how deep they can go. I mean, it's really ridiculous. I mean, I might go into the ocean when I'm in Thailand, you know, at my 5-star resort, and I'll wear it on my wrist. But I'm never gonna dive with this thing. I have a very, very big affinity for design, for engineering. In fact, my mantra is that watches are the only place in the world where both engineering and art meet each other about 50-50. There's a great amount of artistry in it. I'll talk about the Rolex in terms of its artistry in a second. I love wearing them. I love what they're able to do. I love the weight of this thing. It's so chunky. And for me, the sort of angular shape of the case is stunning. It's the only watch at the time that you could go dual directional with the bezel. So all divers, no matter which diver I've got, this one here, the Rolex, it's a unidirectional bezel. It can only ever turn in that direction. Now, what the French divers wanted, well, I don't want to turn this thing all the way the whole time. Is there not a mechanism where I can go in either direction? So they created this little push button. And so you push the button and then you can go that way or that way. Today, both this thing and this thing is obsolete because a diver is just going to put on a dive computer and then off they go. So now it's just about pretty and about ability. From a ability perspective, this Rolex kicks the shit out of this thing. This thing can go 1.2 kilometers down into the ocean without cracking its case. This thing goes down about 4 kilometers into the ocean. At the time, this was the watch that could go the deepest in the ocean when Rolex designed it. No normal diver can do it, so they'd need to be in some sort of submersible, which is where this particular watch got its kudos from. So James Cameron, that did Avatar, Titanic, The Abyss, and other movies, he became obsessed with the deep sea after he did The Abyss, which, by the way, if you haven't watched it, what a film. What he did, he started diving, and then he got a submersible for himself to go to the deepest place on Earth, which is called the Mariana Trench. That is kilometers down into the ocean. Rolex, who sponsored the thing, strapped a watch onto the submersible and onto his wrist at the time. He got to the bottom of the ocean, it's the deepest place on the planet, and then he came back up. The Rolex crystal was intact, which is kind of unheard of at that sort of depth. So for a commemoration, they did this particular watch. If you watch clearly, if you see the dial is blue to black, suggesting that you lose light as you go down into the ocean, you go blue to black, and the green where it says deep sea is the same color of James Cameron's submersible. It's kind of cool. When I had the first inkling to buy myself a really nice watch, this was the watch I eyed up. I couldn't afford it at the time, and so I had to wait, graft a little bit longer, graft a bit harder. This thing is well sought after. It's going to cost you about $12,000, $13,000 new. You cannot find it for love nor money. You're on a 3-year, 4-year waiting list, and it's going to be about $15,000 on a secondary market. So this is an investment watch. If you could find one, buy one. Don't even look back. This is not an investment watch. I bought this in London as a big treat for myself for having a nice year or month. To be honest, I find any reason to treat myself to a watch. So celebrate whatever I need to celebrate is buy a watch. This is not a great investment watch in terms of the new price. So new, this is about $8,000 or $9,000. Today, you'll probably pick it up on a secondary market for about, I'd say probably 6 or 7. So it's dipped in value. Omega, maybe with the exception of few Omegas, but Omega does not have the same resale value as what Rolex does. And coming back to the point of Omega makes watches, Rolex sells watches. Their marketing around this is just incredible. These two are really competing watches. I think they're both stunning in their own right. I wear them with different types of outfits. This guy I actually do sometimes wear with my suit and tie. Not often though, because it's such a behemoth, but this guy goes suit and tie often, and not as much with this sort of thing. So this sort of thing, I need 45, 46, 47, 48, 50, 52 mils to go with this outfit. A small watch face does not really look great. And I know that this is the biggest Rolex that Rolex does, but that's actually quite small for me. So with my suits, I like wearing this guy. Maybe not so much with the blue strap, but I do switch it out with its oyster bracelet. When I switch this one out with its shark-proof bracelet, it's just as nice, and I'll do another episode on how they look different from one another. So that's the story with the Rolex. I love this watch. I love the color. I love the size. I love everything about it. I love this thing because it looks literally like it's a fucking extra out of Star Wars. Like literally, this is what the Millennium Falcon was based on. I'm convinced.